Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Crosstown On Tap. I'm Cody, and I'm joined by my good friend Tony. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody On Tap and Tony at Tony On Tap. If you're not following us on Twitter, I don't know what you're doing. We're some of the biggest baseball fans out there, so we haven't done a show in a while. Tony, how you doing, man? I'm glad we're back. We missed the beginning of the lockout, but we're in day 21, man.
What did we miss about the lockout? I don't think there's anything to miss there. I know we didn't get a show out, Cody, but maybe we were locked out too. At least in our thoughts and how we feel about baseball right now. I think we were both a little locked out.
Right. Well, I feel like maybe we were. What I'm saying is there was so much happening before the lockout, like the last 72 to 96 hours, that I don't know. I was kind of sad we didn't jump on here and just talk about all of baseball, like, because those like 72, 96 hours or whatever was like. It was like old school, like off season, like just moves coming out of nowhere. Everyone definitely had their notifications on for Boob Nightingale and John Heyman and all of them. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you were. I was refreshing Twitter to just see what was going on, and it was exciting. It really was. But then the lockout came, and here we are, and nothing's happening.
Well, Cody, I think that the free agency leading up to the lockout was definitely the most excited I've been as an off-season baseball fan in God knows how long. Like, just for the baseball in general, with how much activity there was. I wouldn't say there was so much White Sox activity that I was super positive about. I know you guys did some stuff. I know Ron's real happy over there. Southside Ron, real happy about Marcus Stroman. I know all of you guys are real happy about it. I saw you guys did a show on that.
Yeah.
But from the White Sox side of things, it was a little bit more, okay, you're not going to do really much of anything. I mean, we still had some moves, and we talked about the Bregman signing over on Sox on Tap and just kind of how the thought that Kimbrel was going to get traded. And I'll ask you about that one in just a few minutes here. But yeah, I don't feel like as a White Sox fan, we really got like those answers that we wanted heading into the break so much as, I mean, you guys are still rumored around Carlos Correa. You made the Stroman acquisition. Like, I don't want to be winning the offseason right now, but I also don't want to be on the outside looking in. I think your club got a little bit better. It took care of some work early. There's some work to do on the south side right now.
Yeah, I mean, for Cubs fans, and we talked about it on Cubs on Tap the last two episodes a little bit. Obviously, we did one whole show just like, I guess, in a way celebrating the Cubs making a huge move, a move that I compare, similarly to the Cubs signing John Lester back in the winter of 2014, and signing Marcus Stroman right before, like literally hours before the lockout began. I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere. There were some chirps out there that the Cubs were interested in Stroman, but Ken Rosenthal hadn't tweeted it until quite literally right before it happened. So we weren't ever really sure. Most of Cubs Twitter was throwing up about how the Cubs hadn't done anything and talking about recent years and how they hadn't spent and all this stuff. And I don't know. I like to say that, I wrote this article and I titled it something around the lines of there's still time for the Cubs to make a splash before this lockout. And I mentioned Marcus Stroman in it. And I linked the one little source that had happened that said that the Cubs were linked to him, and then it happened. So I like to believe that maybe I had something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, the Cubs still have a lot to do. It's awesome they got Stroman. He's going to be their, I would assume, opening day starter.
Is Kyle Hendricks not your number one starter still?
I mean, I would be okay with either one being the opening day starter. But I wouldn't be surprised if Stroman's the opening day starter just for marketing and all that jazz. But
You think
again,
he's going to be the guy that they try and build this around?
who's
From a
Strowman?
marketing stance
Oh,
right
for
here. Like,
sure. Yeah.
is that the next
Yeah,
guy,
the
like
the
a
Cubs are
Rizzo,
going
Chris
to
Bryant?
try. Yeah, the Cubs are going to try and use Strowman as a way to get fans excited and kind of earn some trust back. Now, the only way that that doesn't work is if we come back from the lockout and the Cubs don't do anything to help make their team better, which just wouldn't make any sense now after how much they gave him. I know the years are short, but I just wouldn't make any sense to me for them to sign him and for him to even want to go to the Cubs if they weren't going to do more after the lockout is over.
So
One wild thing.
I'm really happy that he's on your team because I don't like Marcus Stroman,
Well, he
and I think this will help the rivalry a little bit because
it,
he's got a mouth.
yeah,
He's
I
got a
will
mouth. He's not afraid
I
to get
will
on social
say,
media. I think
yeah,
that we're gonna see some fireworks over the next few years.
I will say that I think him coming to the Cubs is going to boost the rivalry between the Cubs and the White Sox, because I know he was linked to the White Sox last offseason, and then he like literally
Yeah,
said it on Twitter.
he did not. He does not like my boy.
Yeah, he doesn't
He
like
does
your guy
not
Tony
like
La
my
Russa,
guy. My
who
guy. He
follows
does.
you on Twitter,
Who follows me on Twitter? Marcus
which is
Stroman.
hilarious to
I
me.
think, does Stroman follow you guys?
He doesn't. Yeah,
He
I'm
doesn't.
surprised he
He
doesn't
doesn't
follow
follow
Ron
you
after he
guys
quote
yet.
tweeted him.
Yeah, I know. He was
He
retweeting
quote
Cubs on
tweeted
tap.
the account. He quote tweeted the Cubs on Tap account. He quote tweeted Ron.
Well, if you can work on getting Marcus Stroman to the table, maybe I could get my guy Tony, and we can all go out and
Have some beers.
have some beers and squash this beef.
Yeah.
We can do some good for this city, or
Yeah.
it'll just turn into a hell of a night. That's
Right. Well,
I don't,
I will say this much.
I just want the rivalry, man.
I again, as a guy who I have stated multiple times, I'm not gonna. It's gonna take a lot for me to ever become a White Sox hater, but I will say that this move does intensify it, and it makes the Crosstown series a little bit more interesting. I know if Strowman gets a start on the South Side next season, he's gonna get some booze, and it's gonna make things fun. And I can't wait, honestly, to see it all play out. That's going to be a long time from now, at least it feels like. But, yeah, the whole thing with Tony La Russa, he quite literally tweeted it, like he put it's out, and I'm sure he didn't delete it. I'm sure you can go find it, where he said that he would never play for a guy like Tony La Russa. So, I'm not exactly sure what his reasoning is behind it, but I don't know. If you just look at Marcus Stroman's timeline, I guess you might be able to figure that out.
Yeah, he's gotten vocal in it. I think that there was also times where Tim Anderson and him did not get along.
Really, I did not know that. That's actually really surprising to me.
Yeah, I believe there was a beef. I don't know the year off the top of my head. I want to say 18. Going back to the old Google machine, but
when he was with the Blue Jays.
Yes, when he was with the Blue Jays. Stroman says words of war with Anderson made 0 sense. Like, there was a Stroman strikeout of Anderson that led to a bench clearing brawl, and that was 2017. I was a year off right there, but I want to see some sparks fly again. And again, this isn't anything directed directly at you here, Cody. I just want the production value, and I feel like when you bring Marcus Stroman to the north side and you have a young vocal leader in Tim Anderson on the south side, it just sets up for some theater. It sets up for theater, and that's going to be good for Chicago baseball.
It will be fun whenever Stroman goes up against Anderson, knowing that history now.
I think they've squashed that bug, because I want to say that TA was trying to get Stro over to the south side last year. I think it may have made sense. But
personally, I feel like Stroman would have fit like the on-field brand of the White Sox, change the game. He's very emotional, and he has all these gestures and stuff that he does, like all the stuff that everyone said that Tony La Russa was going to end when he came to
Yes.
the White Sox.
When Tony La Russa was
Um,
going to end all of the fun that
all the
was for
fun, yeah,
everybody. Yeah,
yeah,
he was going
which
to
he
end
did
all of the
not.
fun. I mean, there's videos of Tony La Russa just having a great time. I mean,
Yeah.
throughout the
I do
entire
love the
year with some
meme
of
of
those
him
guys.
just like hanging out in the dugout wearing like the City Connect uni with his hat to the side or whatever. I mean, it does crack me up a
That's like
little
when
bit.
Grandpa does something ridiculous at the party, man, and
Yeah, yeah.
everybody laughs because he's still got it. That's Tony La
Right.
Russa, and I think that that's the perfect guy to have around that group right there. Somebody with that experience, and I don't need to say anything about the Hall of Famer. I don't have to justify his position. He's already done it now for a year.
Yeah.
But Cody, I think that back to what we were just at right here, the free agency that led up to this lockout overall, hands down, most action I think I've seen in a 3-4 day span that
In
wasn't
years.
in years, and that's like even including the winter meetings, which is
Yeah.
supposed to be that
The
what do you,
earliest actions in like November, like
mm-hmm.
I in recent years, the last 3-4 years, you haven't seen anything like it. I mean, I guess like last off season, there was a couple moves made, like some early ones, but like nothing major. Like it's awesome. Like I said, it was awesome. It was fun. It was great for baseball. Baseball, like they know, like they can't be complete morons. They know that they need to get back to that. Like I know so many people who love the NBA offseason because all the moves come so quick. And like that's why I loved the MLB offseason for so long, and then just all this bullshit over the last, 3-4 seasons in the winter. I remember it took forever for the Cubs to sign Yu Darvish. He didn't sign until like
Mm-hmm.
like a week before spring training. I remember.
White Sox pitcher Dallas Keuchel was a prime example of this. What was this, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when he was with Atlanta? He
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah,
sign
yeah.
until
Craig
like
Kimbrell
almost June.
signed with the Cubs in like in the middle of the season in
Yeah,
2019, and honestly,
that's
the only reason
wild
the
because it
Cubs,
was a qualifying offer, man.
right,
It was
and
the
the only reason the
qualifying
Cubs
offer
actually
for
did
some of
that
those
is because
guys.
Ben Zobrist went on the leave of absence or whatever because his wife was cheating on him, and that's a whole nother story. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know the whole. Like I know like the White Sox stories, Cody. I don't know the whole Ben Zobrist like love affair.
Julio
Like I feel like
Zobrist is like the
it could have been like
reason.
played out. Like why is there not like a Hallmark show like called like the Zobrists,
Yeah,
like a made
I
for
don't
TV
know.
movie?
Should have been. They definitely can make a movie about it. It's been pretty bad. There's still a bunch of stuff surrounding that. I know they went to
Are
court.
they
There
still
was
paying
like a
him money?
lawsuit. The Cubs, no, his contract's up. I mean, he was here for 4 years. That was the contract. So, but yeah, I mean, his when he left when he like took a leave of absence or whatever it was in 2019, that's when the I feel like that was the beginning of the end for like what was to come, what eventually led to what happened in the the trade deadline in 2021. Like it's kind of, you got to big brain yourself to really comprehend
Mm-hmm.
it, but like it is kind of like, because I feel like 2019 perhaps goes a little bit different if Zobrist is there the entire season. But also, who knows if the Cubs even go and get Craig Kimbrell if he's there, because at that time the Cubs are crying poor and they didn't go and get anyone in the offseason, and you know who knows what happens. I there's so many things over the last 2-3 years where you're kind of like, man, if this pandemic doesn't happen, who knows like what the Cubs position is. Like, do they find a way to sign those guys that they traded? I don't know, but every team can
I
say
play
that
that. I
though.
could play. Yeah, every team can say that. Exactly what you were gonna say. There is any team can say
Mhm.
that. I could say that about the White Sox over and over again. Would they have
Mhm.
had the player development done so that they would have been able to make trades to acquire better talent in
Mhm.
certain circumstances? Would they have had figured out some roster construction issues a year sooner?
Yeah.
Just that whole pandemic threw every organization off. But I would agree with you that at least for me, it really felt like the Cubs were starting to fall right around that time, and I've just kind of had this smile on my face ever since. Like, and it
Yeah,
gets
because it's been like it was like a slow burn. Like it did that. Like in a way, I kind of wish the Cubs would have just blown it up, like going into 2020. But instead, they like lured this out, and after they traded Yu Darvish, they should have just traded everyone. And maybe the reason they didn't is Chris Bryant didn't have a great 2020, so his value wasn't very good. You know, neither did Javi Baez had the worst 60-game stretch I ever seen him have, so he had no value. I mean, there's some factors in there. So I mean, again, it affected every organization, but there were so many things that led to why the Cubs didn't trade those guys before last season. But if they did, then they, at least it would have been, you rip the Band-Aid off and we're here and we're wondering what the hell happens. But I don't know. I still think the Cubs came away with really nice returns in those trades, and there's still a chance, perhaps. Not Javi Baez, but I still have some hope. Chris Bryant comes back. Anthony Rizzo, I don't know anymore. He just moved out of his apartment.
Do you want them back because of what they were to the Cubs before, or do you want them because they're the best available piece on the market that you think is affordable for the Chicago Cubs? Because there's two different things there.
Right. I do think Chris Bryant's worth, anywhere between 25 to 28 million AAV for over the span of 5 to 6 years. I guess you could say that his production has decreased since the 2017 season ended. If you look at the advanced stats, I guess, I know there was some injuries put in there. 2018 was the big one. But 2019 made the All-Star team. I don't know how much you want to put into that, but he was pretty solid most of the year. And then 2020, he only played 34 of the 60 games. We had the trade talks, like so many factors outside of just the on-play field, I feel like attributed to his production. Again, you can say that about a lot of players. I feel like it doesn't help that Scott Boras is his agent. I'm not defending.
I don't know
Chris Bryant.
I don't know what the Ricketts relationship is with Boras, but I feel like it's probably better than what Jerry Reinsdorf has.
Yeah,
we did cut him a break on, making sure that we didn't extend Carlos Rodon a qualifying offer, whatever that means. But I still think, I don't know if Chris Bryant's the thing that's holding you up there, or Scott Boras is the thing that's holding the Cubs up from signing it.
I have very little hope that Chris Bryant comes back to the Cubs, but I do think that it's still a possibility because Chris Bryant didn't sign before the lockout with any team.
Yeah, but I'll ask you guys this. I'll ask you this question as a Cubs fan, and I want you to speak collectively for Cubs fans. Okay. If Chris Bryant were to sign with the White Sox like on a 5-year deal, which will never happen, but if he were to sign like a 5-year deal with the White Sox, how hard would it be for guys like you, Southside Ron, and like what if he won not one but like 2 World Series with the White Sox? Like, would he go down as like still your favorite player? Or at that point, would it like really be that gut punch that you would need to hate the White Sox?
I think that would probably do it, man. He was my favorite. He was my favorite player through the core years. Northside Rom would be pretty sad. I think he'd stop wearing White Sox shirts to the cell.
I see, like that's where I think I get my rivalry that I want.
I mean, that would probably do it. What now? The real question there, if that were to happen, if he wins 3 World Series rings, that means that he probably has great numbers. I'm going to assume puts him on the path for a Hall of Fame resume.
And what does he go into?
Yeah, was he go in as a White Sox or Cubs? If he wins 2 World Series with the White Sox,
David Kaplan would be the happiest man on earth.
He would. I still think that he would go in as a Cub though, based off what he did.
as of right now, but I mean, like, that's the thing is like we don't know
Depends
what
on
the
how he
future
would
is. This
win.
is where we're
Right.
at. Yeah, how he would win. Like, is he injured, but he still gets a ring and he was like part
Yeah.
of the team? Is it,
Does he win
the end of the
MVP? Yeah.
yeah, is it an end of his career like Frank Thomas send off, but like
Right.
he still won a World Series? Like, is he a meme or is he a legend? That's the
Right.
question. Is
Right.
Does Chris Bryant become White Sox legend? And we're so far down the hypotheticals here. I just wanted to get a scenario and a
That
baseline of like where
would, I
you're
mean,
at.
I feel like that would put me over, man. That would get you what you want out of me. That
Okay.
would that would get you
The
get
show would
get
do great numbers.
yeah.
That's what you're saying, because you'd be so
So,
mad.
for business reasons, I guess that would be a good thing.
There we go.
So,
I'm trying to find some Chris Bryant stats here. I'm just perusing the internet just to see what
yeah,
we've
I
got going
mean,
on. But in that regard, though, so you think that he's really worth plus or 20
I,
plus a season for the next 5 years?
I do, yeah. But he's going to be 30. He can play any position in the outfield. I know the Giants were like quote unquote unimpressed, and they thought that his defense wasn't
Is
that
that
great.
just an
Well,
attempt to drive the price down, or is that an
it's
accurate
either
assessment?
that or it's either that or it's like, okay, well, they have one of the biggest outfields in all of baseball. Who all can play the outfield for the Giants at an elite level? Like, I don't know, but having the versatility of being able to play all three outfield positions and first and third, while also giving you anywhere between a 3 and a 4 WAR for each season, I feel like is, especially with the approach that he has at the plate, I feel like it's worth $25 million a year if you're a team that's ready to win now. And that's the only thing that kind of holds me back from thinking the Cubs are actually going to do it, because yeah, they signed Stroman and yeah, they might sign Correa,
So
but like
where
even if they did do that, they would still need so much pitching. I don't really know if the Cubs, even if they were to sign Correa, I don't know if they'd be in the talk for a World Series. They'd be in the talk for winning the Central, but like, like they still need so much more with the pitching side.
I love that
That
you're like, they're maybe a few moves away.
I'm not all
I,
the
ju-
way in yet.
I know you're not. I know you're not all the way in yet. There's certain people that I was talking with our guy Ron the other day, and he's like, "Oh, I think that they're gonna, maybe make some moves to get to a certain point where they can compete. They're not going to be great, but he keeps calling it a retool and
Yeah.
not a rebuild." And
Yep.
I don't know about you, but the word retool to me, just as a Blackhawks fan, the word retool to me just means being like the White Sox every year of my life outside of 2005, and like sometimes making the playoffs, but pretty much always just being middle of the road. So I don't like the retool.
Yeah.
I,
I don't
I,
even think it's necessarily a retool, because like when you retool, you still have like your core players, right? And I feel like the Blackhawks, they still have Kane and Tays, right? And like they just been trying to band-aid everything up since 2015, and they fired their coach and all this stuff. But like you look at the Cubs, really, there's like 4 guys left from 2016. And one of them is Wilson Contreras, who has been in trade talks. So I don't like, after signing Stroman, it would be absolutely ridiculous for them to trade Wilson Contreras. They need to find a way to give him contract extension. He probably deserves the contract that Yasmani Grandal got from the White Sox or something similar to it. And then, they're set there. So for me, I understand where Northside Ron is coming from when it comes to, calling it a retool. I still feel like it is a rebuild, but it's just not going to be what everyone thinks it's going to be when it came to the last Cubs rebuild that took them 3 to 4 seasons, 5 years, whatever you want to call it, to get to the promised land. I think that it'll be much quicker than the casual fan probably thinks. Even after signing Stroman, I think the casual fan still thinks there's a long way to go. If anything, the casual fan thinks the Stroman signing is similar to like Edwin Jackson, like something like that. But like,
don't be hating on Edwin Jackson.
He was so bad for the Cubs. He played for like every single team.
Yeah, I think that
but
guy
he was
did
so
play
bad
for
for
like
the
every
Cubs.
team.
He helped the tank, man. Like that. That's why I like Edwin Jackson. He helped the Cubs lose games when they needed to lose games.
So
Like,
I guess that's where, as the White Sox fan that knows enough about the Cubs, and what you guys are doing, would you say going into this year? And I guess I don't want to steal anything from your preview shows on Cubs on Tap, but going into this year, are you guys rooting to lose, or is the lockout kind of holding you back from that, or are you like, hey,
yeah,
I think we're going to be a fringe team right away?
As of right now, they're not making the playoffs as of right now. But the lockout is keep giving me hope that when they come back, they're going to actually do some stuff. Like I said, whether they get Correa or not, I still like Trevor Story as, I guess, a consolation prize if that's a thing. And there's
I would almost prefer Trevor Story to Carlos Correa.
I
think there's a little extra
I'm
pop.
all for either one of them, honestly. They would pay half the price for Trevor Story.
That's one of the reasons why I'd rather have Trevor Story on my team, is because he's going to do similar things. Yeah,
he's just a little bit older, I believe.
There's a little bit older, and I think there's a little bit more of a hole in the swing. But for all intents and purposes, for a couple extra $1 million, is Carlos Correa the guy that you need? Is he the centerpiece of like in this year?
It's a good question that I'm not sure. Like I
mean, he wished you guys a happy holidays.
He did. Twitter. He did wish us a happy holidays. Didn't wish the Astros a happy holidays. I don't know.
Do we know why he's mad at Houston? Money?
Maybe because they never found a way to get him a contract extension. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know why he would want to really leave Houston, because he's been so successful there over the years.
Well, and
maybe it's similar stuff to the Cubs and Bryant and Rizzo and Baez and all of them. I don't know. I don't know. But
I thought he was going to wind up with Hinch in Detroit. And I guess there's still a chance.
But I don't know. After giving Baez that money, I don't know.
Where are you at on Kyle Schwarber?
He's he's the guy that I would that I would be okay getting the consolation prize, because he would be a consolation if they are unable to get Nick Castellanos. And I'm at the point that I think Nick Castellanos is going to get similar to money as Chris Bryant. But I think Chris Bryant's just a little bit better than him when it comes to overall game. Nick Castellanos historically not been the greatest defensive outfielder. He can only really play corner outfield anyway, but the guy can rake. And I mean, there's no doubt about that. How long he's going to be able to do that, and he wants like a 7 or 8 year deal as well. Like, I don't know. But I'd love to have Castellanos. But if the Cubs sign Castellanos, they're not getting Correa. So that's why I'm kind of like, all right, if they go get Correa, they could still get Schwarber. He can play left field or DH, which I'm hoping when this when the lockout's over, they implement the DH to the National League. So like you have those options.
Do you think that's? I almost want to move into a little bit of lockout talk, but do you think that one's coming? Do you the DH across both leagues?
I just don't see why they wouldn't do it after it showed to be very successful in the National League during those 60 games during 2020. Like, plus there's so many teams and players that are pushing for it. There's been many players on social media that have talked about how it's like something that they want. I don't see why they wouldn't implement that. The only people that are that don't want to implement it are just people who just don't want to change. Like they don't like change. And I personally, I don't really understand it. Like, cause I'm so tired of seeing a guy for the Cubs batting 8th or 7th. They get on, they bat 7th, they get on with 2 outs. And then the 8 hitter comes up and they intentionally walk him to get to the pitcher, and it ends an inning. Or you got 2 guys on with 1 out, but the pitcher's coming up and he's not I guess he's in a bunt situation, or maybe even if it's 2 outs and the pitcher's coming up and you're in a rally or you're about to rally, but you can't because the pitcher's coming up. And, there's some decent hitting pitchers out there, but you understand what I mean. The odds of actually having successful inning, so many of them have been ruined by pitchers hitting. So I just don't understand why baseball wouldn't implement it. Like, it's time. Like, if they need to have something that makes the National League different from the American League, then figure something else out. Like, I don't know, but like the DH needs to be in the National League at this point with how much harder it's become to score runs with how elite pitching has come.
This is something that I am totally against. I want the National League game to be just sacred. We need to have baseball. Like, I got that survey and we'll get into it towards the end of the show here, but like, leave it alone. Stop making the changes to some of this stuff. It bothers me. I don't know why. I think I just like to argue with my Sox on Tap co-hosts. Now I found you to argue with. Just leave it alone. I love how stupid
baseball
it is.
You watch.
Yeah, but I love how stupid it is for the pitcher to go up there and there to be a guy that sucks. Like, that's a thing that you have to navigate in the game.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the offense. Like, I want okay, then start developing baseball programs to allow people to, pitch and hit the baseball.
Yeah.
Focus. They talk about drafting athletes, instead of
two-way players.
And two-way players and also maybe that's the next direction that baseball goes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have a problem with it if majority of all pitchers at least looked like they knew how to swing a bat. And again, there are some of them, for the Cubs. Jake Arrieta was one of them. Carlos Zambrano was one of them back in the day.
But
Kerry Wood was one.
Still, even then, none of them are coming anywhere near what I get. See, that's why I think that Shohei Ohtani's he's so good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, if there were more people who were doing what he was doing, I don't think it would be looked at as special.
For sure. But that's why his season was so special because, I guess, in a way, he's kind of paving the way for the next set of players like him,
Because there's going to be so that's where I think it's good for the game of baseball to have a Shohei Ohtani because it's going to impact generations of kids right now who see this and say, you can pitch and hit at the same, because right now, kids don't look at players who, are pitchers as somebody that can hit or, hitters as guys that would be able to pitch. Although you see that more often, when what's his name comes in for the Minnesota Twins and Yerman Mercedes cranks a, long fly ball that sets off the internet into flames. But I think that it's good for baseball that they will have kind of that role model guy, the face of the sport right now. I saw a poll or whatever that came out, or not a poll, just a search engine result poll, results page for this year in baseball. The most searched player in every state almost was Shohei Ohtani, including this one. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 baseball teams.
Yeah.
And that's how many people have searched this guy out. He can do it. More players should be able to start getting there. At least I think so. But
baseball's going to go much time for that to happen.
This is where baseball's totally wrong, though, Cody, is you've got this guy that they're marketing as this two-way player who can do both things. And maybe putting a DH spot in the National League doesn't totally close the door on this. But your biggest star right now that you're trying to market to everyone hits, pitches, plays in the AL, and is kind of this guy that can do both, which is what baseball was when you go in the backyard, you pitch, you hit, you play wiffle ball, you do everything.
Yeah.
I think that's where the game needs to kind of go find its way back to. And yet we're trying to, nope, these guys can only do one thing. But let's also cut off the left-handed specialist because we don't like what he does because it slows the game up. It's you either got to go super specialized. Everybody's got their talent and accept that, or go back the other way. You can't be doing things on
Yeah.
both ends of the
You
spectrum.
you're making solid points onto why, like they should leave the pitcher hitting in the National League. And for once, it's not because it's for strategy or for, because it's fun to see a pitcher hit a homer or whatever. Like, you're trying to make the point of it will force players to become someone like a Shohei Ohtani. And in that aspect, I can respect that opinion, and I can, honestly, like, kind of support it. Makes me want to, like, change my mind a little bit, I'll admit. Again, it's just like, how many players can be that special or to even be like, because Otani he's just a generational talent. And baseball's had so long to be able to, I mean, I guess in a way Babe Ruth was that, but baseball was so different when he played. And then, like, that's just how baseball has changed over the years, right? Like people call Babe Ruth the greatest player of all time, but it's like, if he
Well,
had
that's because
played in this era,
it's
like,
hard to
who
throw
knows if
it's
he's
hard
like,
to throw a curveball with pinpoint precision and be able to hit a home run.
right. But you know what
You
I'm
got to
saying
spend
though,
a lot of
like,
time. You got to spend a lot of time getting there.
right.
But
And
at the same point in time, if people like home runs and people like fastballs and all this other, stop. You can't. This is the problem. Nobody's gonna ever stop developing pitchers.
mhm.
But if the game never got to that point where, like, because we as humans just need to, like, find the maximum efficiency for everything that it is that we do. So as we continue down this path, we're going to continue to develop pitchers who are going to, you see all the analytics and everything that goes behind all this stuff now. When you don't have
Yeah.
that and you dial some of that back, I'd argue it's a little more fun to see somebody out there who's going to lay one up more times, and just, have Miguel Sano out there chucking the ball.
Mhm.
Have Chris Bryant on the mound every 3 weeks just for the fuck of it.
Yeah.
I'm way off base here, but bringing it back, if Shohei Ohtani is your star there, and you're trying to, I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity for them,
Yeah.
especially had he signed with the National League team. But I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's where the game's
It
going.
would have
And
been very interesting to see how teams would have used him. I know the Cubs were like the one National League team that he was most interested in, but then he chose the Angels, probably because it's closer to Japan or Korea, wherever he's from. And also they're an AL team. It would have been interesting to see how a National League team would have used him, because if he would have gone to a National League team, maybe, just maybe, maybe my opinion on this whole DH thing would be different, because if whoever has him, if they would have been able to win and use him all different types of ways, like the Angels did this year, minus the winning, then you're kind of like, you're kind of, you just have the one perk, you know what I mean? But I don't know, man. It's just like, to me, it's strictly more so to me about, like, winning baseball games than it is, growing the game or whatever you want to call it. Like, I've just seen it so many times, a pitcher ruining a potential rally or something like that. And
oh no, I'm right there with.
I've also seen pitchers get hurt at the
I'm
plate,
right there with you.
like
I'm right there with you.
Adam Wainwright, like, tore his Achilles running out of the batter's box, and it's like a freak injury, right? But, like, at the end of the day,
Killed the fantasy season for me.
right?
It happened.
But it, like, like he's there, or fans were there to see him pitch, not to hit. Even though, like, for a pitcher, he actually isn't that bad of a hitter. But that's, like, one example. For the Cubs, like Pedro Strop in 2018, I believe it was, he pulled his hamstring hitting in, like, the 10th inning because the Cubs didn't have anyone left on their bench or whatever. Like, that was a wild game or whatever. I think it's the Nationals, like, September 2018. Like,
I just like those long extra inning games. And maybe it's because I'm crazy. Like, I want, like, 1 a.m. Central. It's like
I'm
1
now
a.m. Central, and
the
the game
pitcher,
is on the East Coast.
right?
So
The
you know the
hitter on
fans have been
second
there
base
forever.
rule is that's like the hitter on second base rule is I have the exact feelings about it as I do like the shift. Like I hate the shift if it doesn't benefit the Cubs. But I love the shift whenever it benefits the Cubs. And that's how I feel about the hitter or the runner on second base to start extra innings. Like on one end, yeah, it speeds a game up, and you're not in the 17th inning on a Tuesday night, and you're not blowing your entire bullpen out for the next week. On the other hand, though, like I don't want to see the Cubs lose because there was a guy on second base to start a half inning, and he scored because of two ground balls the opposite side of the field. You know what I mean?
Now on that's I agree with you in a certain extent, to a certain extent here. If the Sox won because they got to start a runner on second base, I'm taking that win every single time.
Right. And I
Do
will
I feel
too
cheap? Do I feel
for the
cheap
Cubs.
about it? Hell yes, I feel cheap
A
about it.
little bit,
But it
yeah.
doesn't matter. My team won, so that's the
Right.
fan in me.
Right.
The runner on second base rule, though, that one's a little bit different to me than the shift. The shift, I mean, what do we want to do? Do we want to like draw a bunch of circles on the ground, and this is the only place
I
the
just
player
feel like
can
they
go?
need to be limited to how much they can shift. I
I
feel
think you
like.
could just go wherever you want. If you want to stack 9 guys on on one side of the field, if you are a professional baseball player and you cannot bunt it or just drag it down the line on the other side, that's your fault, and you probably shouldn't be in the major leagues. That's my opinion on it, because I don't care if we're talking about on base and getting on base and how important that is. I want like a stats guy to go in on this one.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Give me the left-handed hitter, left-handed power hitter that can just slap it the other way all day and take that away from them, and it opens the whole thing up. I mean, it's
Right.
the people don't like to look at baseball, hockey, and basketball in kind of a similar light, because both of those games are fluid, whereas baseball is kind of more stationary. And my thought on it is this: if you're trying to attack the paint in a basketball game, everybody in the zone defense is just going to keep collapsing on you until somebody starts hitting the three-pointer. Same thing with hockey. If you're shooting from the point the whole time, they're going to come up there. That's when you look to go the other way. Same concept here. Just go the other way a couple times, and then all of a sudden they're going to stop shifting on you because the scouting report is going to be a lot different. The problem is all this one-dimensional stuff, this specializing. If I don't hit the ball 380 fucking feet this way, that's not success.
Yeah.
Because that's
Right.
what my agent tells me I need to do. That's what my coach tells me I need to do. How about just get a hit? How about just slap it the other way? Just bunt it, do what you have to do. That solves the whole fucking problem for me with the shift. Just do it.
There's so many times where I'm like, they should just do this, especially if like the Cubs were down like a run or two and late in the inning, like late in the game, and it's just like you just need to get a guy on. But like Kyle Schwarber is a great example, and he was a guy who you had to sometimes keep that guy at third base honest. But more often than not, he's going up there to try to hit the ball out, right? And whether it's because of your agent or whether it's because you're trying to earn yourself a certain contract, that plays something there, right? But you also, like, I feel like the other team wins in a certain way if you do get that bunt hit and you're on first base and the next guy coming up isn't necessarily the biggest home run or extra base hit guy. So in a way, the other team is getting what they want, right? Because like if Kyle Schwarber bunts for a hit down the third base line because of the shift, and he's on first base, and the next guy coming up is Jason Hayward, who can hit a homer, but he's not nearly the threat. And say, it all depends on like the situation of the game, right? With the score, the inning, whatever, how many outs, whatever. Like in some little aspect, the other team, if Kyle Schwarber does that, they're taking that as a win going into the next hitter. Like they're just happy that he's on first base.
That's my thing. That's my thing is just take it. Take that because if you're getting on base at that kind of rate, if they're going to shift, if I'm, if you put Barry Bonds back in the game right now and he's going to hit a home run almost, 4 out of every 5, 10 times, somewhere in there, on average, they're going to shift him almost 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So if Bonds gets a pitch that's not to his liking, if they're not walking him, because that's what I was actually going for, is they're going to walk him like 4 out of every 5 at bats, and they're going to shift him 90% of the time, even if they're pitching to him. So if every single time he comes up and he hits a single, you might be able to stretch that into a double just by going the other way. Why don't you? The other team's going to think it's a win, but it just keeps the order moving. You're trying to avoid outs.
Yeah. There's
the more outs
there's
avoid,
a lot
the
of
more
truth.
runs you
There's
score.
a lot of truth to what you're saying. I just think that when the real analytical teams, for sure, definitely see a guy like I said, if it was Kyle Schwarber, for example, they would rather see him lay down a bunt down third base line to get a single instead of him trying to actually do some damage. But on the flip side, like the point that you're saying, it's like, getting, whether it's the beginning of an inning, just trying to get something started, like it makes sense to do. And the amount of times as a Cubs fan, I saw Kyle Schwarber hit a freaking line drive right into the shift. It was annoying because it's like, okay, 15 years ago, that's probably a base knock or a double down in the corner of, in left and right field. And it's just like frustrating to me because I just feel like his time with the Cubs could have been so much better if, one, the shift isn't what it is, and two, if he stays healthy and maybe he fixes his swing a little bit like he did this year. There's obviously some factors into to his own game to why he, at least most of his Cubs tenure wasn't what I had hoped. But I do feel like the shift really took away some of what he could, like some of what we all would have thought of him. I feel like you can say that about a lot of players. I just use him as an example. I feel like Rizzo also was in the guy who just hit the ball in the shift so many times. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like there has to be some sort of limiting on it or whatever. I don't know. But I understand, just bunt it down the third base line. They should just do it every single time. But it's like, how many times at the end of the day are you going to do that? But at the same time, they do it enough, then they'll play defense straight up, right? It's interesting. But again, to me, it's just like there's so many factors with the shift that happens. Like just seeing the Cubs hit into the shift in a big moment just grinds my gears. But seeing the other team do it right in the Cubs' favor, it just makes me like, all right, this analytically it makes sense, and it's frustrating. That's why the runner on second base, that's why I compare the two, because it's just a love-hate relationship for me.
No, I totally understand that, Cody. I just realized that we've been talking for 48 minutes and we never finished an intro because we've been that starved to talk about baseball.
Yeah.
We're on Apple Podcasts now for anybody who wants to find us. Crosstown On Tap on Apple Podcasts. It took a little while, but we do have confirmation, Cody. I think you checked it and it's good. Yeah, thumbs up. All right.
Yeah, I would say that we are up, man. We are up.
Okay. So we are on Apple Podcasts now, so you can get more of Cody and I talking about baseball and random topics. Cody, I did find something while we were kind of talking some baseball general rules, and I'm going to kind of just close the gap on this. I've got a comparison for Carlos Correa and Trevor Story in their careers. And I'm just going to sit here and read you some stats. Carlos Correa, career batting average, 277. Trevor Story has a 272. OBP, Correa sits at 356. Story 340. Story does outslug him 523 to 481. And Story also holds the higher OPS at an 863. Correa comes in at an 837. Trevor Story
What's
has
the age difference.
The age difference is 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
2 years.
Correa's like 27 and Story's
Yes.
29.
27 and 29. That is correct. And Trevor Story has played in a couple fewer games. They've actually both participated in around 750. Correa holding a 7-game edge on Trevor Story, 52 to 45. And the plate appearances and at bats are almost, they're within, it looks like, within 100 of each other. So these stats are like that. This is a good comparison here.
Right. Can I just be the guy who's like Coors?
You can, but now that's good. That's going to lead me to go in here and look at Trevor Story's home and road splits.
Yeah.
But he out tripled him. The stolen base factor with Trevor Story is another thing. I don't know how much he's running lately or if a lot of those came earlier on in the career. But there's, if you want to go back to that discussion with anybody else in your Cub circles, I would advocate for Trevor Story. But that's just me. I am going to move this a little bit along here, Cody. I want to talk about a few more topics before we shut this down. I got an email today from the MLB. They asked me to take a survey. Did you get a survey? I don't think you
I did not
get a survey.
I don't know why I didn't. I mean, I get emails from the Cubs all the time, so I feel like I should be getting emails from the MLB. So,
yeah, this was random. I don't even know
maybe
if
it's
it was
in a
the
random
MLB
folder or something. Like maybe it's in my like promotions folder.
So they like even asked me like my political affiliations and everything. So I don't know if it was really the MLB or if it was somebody else.
What? Why do they care?
I don't know, but that was like they actually asked. It said, "Are you a Republican or a Democrat, or do you prefer not to?" That was one of the questions that the MLB wants to know about you. Very random. But they actually asked a few questions about baseball, and one of them that I felt was very important was the pace of play. Do you feel that games are too fast, too short, all that good stuff? And then they gave me some free space to write, and I felt like I got to vent a little bit about the runner on second base rule. But Cody, let's go to the one that I kind of quote tweeted that when we were going to start this show. Is pace of play. I love a long baseball game.
You've kind of already hinted at that earlier, right?
I'm going to hint at that a million times. What's your preferred baseball game time frame, length, what have you?
It's tough, right? Because like if the Cubs are on the West Coast at 9 p.m., do I want to watch a 15-inning game? No. If they're playing at 1:20 at Wrigley Field here in Chicago, I would probably think differently. If they're playing at 6 or 7 p.m. on the East Coast or in Chicago, like a regular night game, I probably don't want to see a long baseball game based off. Now, I would think differently if I got to just watch baseball and talk about it on podcasts and stuff like that all the time without needing a day job or any of that. I'd probably think differently, honestly, because it'd just be my life, right? But for the average person, I'm thinking
the world kind of breaks there,
right?
The world breaks us down.
Like I'm someone who I want to be able to watch the entire game. Like more often than not, I want to be able to watch the entire game and not feel like just like get this over with. Like that's my thing. Like if you get to a point where you're like just get this over with, then it's like maybe the pace is too slow. But baseball really hasn't done anything to try to change the pace of play. I mean, the mound visits thing.
I disagree with you there.
The bullpen stuff. Only allowing so many pitchers in and like where there's so many batters or whatever they can face. Personally, I feel like they haven't really done much to change it. I mean, you convince me otherwise. Maybe they need the pitch clock. I don't know how much that will affect pitchers. I don't know. To me though, are games too long? Like that's the main question. Are games too long? I would say.
You want to say yes.
I want to say yes.
You feel like they're too long. So
yes.
What is it that like? See,
I don't want to watch a 4-hour game. Like I just don't.
That's where I come in, and maybe it's just me being a little bit older than you, but I'm like, why? What else do you have to do? Like, I'm
Yeah.
genuinely curious. If you're a baseball fan, and maybe I'm just really animated about this. If you're a baseball fan, what else do you have to do? Like, do you want to move on to talking about it? Because I already spend 20 hours a day talking about it or
Mhm.
thinking about it. I just want it to be happening. And if it's my favorite team that's playing in the game, like, I just want them on. The best thing about baseball to me is that you don't have to pay attention the way you do with other sports. It
Mhm.
gives you breaks to get other things done. There's a reason why baseball can be played every day and even at 1 in the afternoon during a school day or a summer afternoon day, because people can pay attention to what's going on a radio or on a TV and not
Mhm.
have to give up all of their focus. And even baseball knows that. But
Yeah.
that's the greatest thing about it is the ultimate distraction from whatever else is going on that's shitty in your world, that you can
Mhm.
plug yourself into your team playing a 15-inning game. I can understand where people who need to get up in the morning kind of get left out in this,
Yeah.
where if you've got to wake up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, or you're working a job like I can understand that.
Yeah.
But the people who are like, oh my God, this game's been 3.5 hours and we're only in the 7th inning. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, especially if I'm at home, I'm like, this is relaxing. This is fantastic. Like, I'm tuned into this,
Yeah.
and now it's gonna last even longer. But like, I don't know where that mentality came from of like, hurry, like let's get this done so that we can
I think a
move
lot
on.
of it has to do with just the other three major professional sports. An NBA game takes 2 hours normally. Same thing with the NFL might go 3 hours depending on how many freaking penalties there are, and they have to go look at the tape and all the
Mhm.
bullshit. Um, and then I don't know about the NHL as much. Maybe you would. Maybe I know the one thing I've noticed with the NHL is like what, like especially with the Blackhawks, like why are they playing at 8 p.m. some nights? I never understood that. And sometimes their games will go long, especially in the playoffs because they do the overtimes differently. So maybe again,
I
I'm not
love playoff overtime hockey, like
most
for
people
the same
do. Like
reason.
the only
But
time I really tune into hockey, honestly, is during the playoffs, just because like there's just more at stake and whatever. But I'm not a regular season guy, whatever. But I feel like those things have a factor into that. And I'm with you. Like, yeah, I love watching a game. Like, sometimes baseball games will be 4 hours because there's just a lot of offense, right? So in a sense, that's awesome because most fans want to see offense, right? Me and you probably lean a little bit different. Like we like a good pitcher's duel, right? I know
mhm.
I do. I love watching Kyle Hendricks go out
I
there
even
and throw 87 and 8 innings and strikes out like 8 guys, and you're like,
I
in
think a
this day
lot
and
of
age, how's he
people
doing that?
I think a lot of people get caught up in baseball's too long because there's games where my team's getting blown out 9-0 in the 3rd inning, and then
Mm,
they claw back for like 3 or 4 runs just to kind of keep it there. And then there's
yeah,
pitching change after pitching change in the 6th, 7th, 8th, ninth, just to
right.
get you through because somebody threw close to 80 pitches through the first three. So like
Hmm.
that's where people are like, that's where I think you get the can we get this over with right now?
Yeah,
And
and
so like I'll even just sit back on those like on those games, like it's up, it's on.
mhm.
But is the game too long? Because if that's the case, like just shut it off and move on to something else. You can be done
Yeah,
with it. The only place that you can leave the stadium if you don't want to be there. So
right.
like that's the thing is like the game's too long. But wait, like we're supposed to shorten it for who? Everybody's just chasing that end. You could tune back in at the end if you want to, just to
Mhm.
see what the score is. That's
Right.
where I'm kind of like I'm confused with this because normally when we're watching games, like everybody's got their phone already. You're already on your phone. You're already, watching. You look at Buzz every day. Like just I'm in the Buzz cave. Here's 3 TVs.
Yeah.
Here's 3 TVs. Everybody's got their attention on 5, 10 different things right now, especially in the sporting world. You're
Yeah.
gambling. You're doing on tap bets. Shout out on tap bets. Go bet with Cody and Joey Ricotta. You'll make some money. You guys are like just making lists over there. It's great.
Thank you.
But like everybody's, you got a phone, you got a tablet, you got a laptop, you got 3 screens. The game's too long.
Yeah.
What are you going to change to another game? This is
Right.
what people are going to do. That's why I don't understand the argument that like we need to shorten this and make it more compact. No, people want to make it more exciting. They don't want to make it shorter.
Right. And maybe in a way, it's just like we need more action. There's a lot of strikeouts in today's game because the pitching is so good.
So I think gambling will help there once that's national because you have strikeout totals now that you can bet on. But I just appreciate the strikeout is a thing. Like that's good pitching.
Right. And I'm talking.
They want to move the mound.
Like
they want to do a
fan and everything.
Yeah. I think for the casual fan, and this is easier said than done because I really think that they should cater to the people who love baseball and we're like just. I think that they're trying to cater to the casual fan almost too much, whereas like other sports have a larger casual fan base. The NFL is a different story. There's only 17 games.
Mm-hmm. I even feel like the NBA is more of a casual fan. Like, if anything, people who like the NBA just like players. Like there aren't a lot of people who like teams. You know what I mean?
That's another thing. I've kind of seen that too, but I'm not too familiar with NBA stuff as much as I am NHL and MLB. But I think you're right there because like just how I even look at some of the stuff with like when Kobe died, that was like a whole nation of people who were rallied behind one player. Everybody loves Michael Jordan and Jordans, and there's brands that are associated with players. Whereas like in baseball, like I can't think of like an icon baseball player who's got like a brand behind them.
Mm-hmm.
The way that LeBron,
like that, and that's
Kobe, MJ, like that tier of player.
Right.
Even
like
Derrick
the
Rose
MLB's
had
been
a
messing up with
brand.
Mike Trout for the last decade, man. Like the fact that some people don't even know who he is crazy.
I just wanted Mike Trout to go play for the Marlins.
I feel like if he was on the East Coast, at least more people would pay attention. I feel like a big part of it is that he's on the West Coast. You know,
that's true. I mean, that's where sports media is, and this is something else. The time zone thing for sports, especially with star players that are not in the NBA, they have trouble marketing them when they're on the West Coast.
Yep. You're not wrong. And a large part is because they're starting the game so late. I mean,
yes.
You to appease to the Central Time and East Time Zone, like they would have to start the games an hour or two earlier, but that the local people, they're just getting off work basically at that time there. So it's just like it's a very frustrating thing when it comes to that. Cause like I feel like the Mariners are a great example for me. Like I had no idea that they were even in the playoff hunt because I just don't pay attention to the Mariners. Like I love the game, I love paying attention, blah blah blah.
It's very easy to forget the Mariners,
right? And maybe this year is kind of a bad example for me because the Cubs were out of it after August, and I'm just thinking about the Cubs and like what they're gonna do. And I really like honestly. As far as playoff teams, the only teams I was really kind of watching from a view were teams that Bryant, Rizzo, and Baez were on. And then I was intrigued with the White Sox. I wanted to see what they're going to do in the postseason. I wanted to see how they were playing at the end of the year going into the postseason because they're here, right? So I cared a little bit. So yeah, I didn't care about
You're keeping an eye on us over there and what Southside Ron was doing. Let's just be perfectly clear about what
I was paying attention to Northside Ron at the time, and I gave him a nice yelling. Didn't like it, man. I just think that if you're a fan of a team, and there's another team in town like the White Sox are, like again, I don't hate them or anything, but you're just never gonna see me wear a White Sox shirt, man. Like if that helps you, you know,
Yes.
if that's helping you for like you want me to like loathe the White Sox, like that's fine. Like to me, it's more of just like they're the other team in town. Like I don't have a giant problem with them, but it's like
It goes
I just
back to
feel
like
like you can't wear both.
if there's two high schools on opposite sides of town,
Right.
it's
You just
like
can't wear
being
both.
that it's that kid that goes to both football games and roots for both teams. You can't
Yeah.
do that in Texas.
I'm
Like
with you on that kind of thing. I'm
they'd
with you
throw you
there.
out of the stadium.
Right. I'm with you there. I wholeheartedly support like,
But so
you
like
know, wearing
I
one
want
jersey.
can David Kaplan hook Ron up with the Sox Cubs
Those
jersey?
things are disgusting, man. They're absolutely disgusting.
Ron might be the only guy at On Tap that would wear it.
He would be. He would be.
But I feel like
agree.
he needs one, and I almost want to custom make him one now
Get him a
for
nice
Christmas.
present.
Get him
Yeah.
a Christmas present. It's the half Sox, half Cubs, and it just says like Ron on the back.
I'm gonna clip this and we'll tweet it tomorrow.
It just says Ron. And we can get like slider plates, you know, like they had in like kindergarten where you could like put like south side or north side above Ron. You could slide it in depending on where
slide it in. Yeah.
Yes.
That would honestly that would be pretty cool to get someone like Ron. I would I'd help pay for that.
Ron would love it. But yeah, he'll hear this and probably yell at me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, he knows
yeah.
that I was upset about what happened.
I don't really have much else, Cody. It was great to burn an hour and talk baseball.
Yeah, you know, it was again, I felt like we missed so much from like what happened before the lockout and everything, and I'm glad we got to talk about that. I got to talk a little bit about where I'm at with the Cubs. I feel like we didn't really talk much about like where you're at with the White Sox. I know they didn't really do anything. They signed
They didn't do shit.
They signed
Graveman.
They signed Craig Kimbrell's like replacement when they finally trade him.
Yeah, they did get Graveman. And I talked about some of that on Sox on Tap with our guy Steve a couple weeks ago. You know, there's just it's been very quiet there. I think that I think they'll do some stuff. I think they'll do some stuff once we come out of
But I don't think they're going to do anything that people are completely surprised about, if that makes sense. Like,
no, they're not going to do anything that's just. I mean, if I had to predict right now, and I have no idea. I hope I'm proven wrong all the time, regardless. I think that some of the things that they're going to do are more minor type moves that help shore up some stuff, but there's not a lot out there right now because the White Sox are stacked with bats in corner positions, which is what like everybody else wants to go get. They've got their shortstop. I mean, second base. I
think they need pitching. Like that's what I think they need to do.
Second base and catcher. I think that people want to kind of harp on there. Yeah. You've got Yasmani Grandal. You want to hope that he stays healthy all next year.
Right.
You want to hope that he stays
healthy. You can't
healthy.
rally on Zach Collins.
I don't want them going in next. I don't want them going next year with Zach Collins there. But you know, if
you
that's
think you're done on a first round pick from what was it 2019?
See, I feel bad. I feel bad because there's a person there. You know, like it's Zach Collins, but it's also like this is.
I personally, if the White Sox and the Cubs want to hook up with another trade, perhaps. I would gladly take Zach Collins and Craig Kimbrell off your hands again. And I feel like this would be like the third and final trade where I feel like everyone would agree would be like an even trade because I feel like no
Zach
White
Collins.
Sox. I would take Zach Collins with like the upside.
Zach Collins and Craig Kimbrell. Who are you bringing back?
Well, we got some prospects. We got some.
See, I don't want a prospect though. Like if I'm
Rick Hahn, I'm not saying that this is going to happen or that it should happen. I'm just saying like the White Sox at this point, like they've already basically said they're going to trade Kimbrell because they don't want to pay the $16 million.
At that rate, you're probably like maybe Nick Madrigal back.
I don't think
that doesn't make sense for you.
But it doesn't make sense either.
It doesn't make sense for you.
It doesn't make sense in general.
Is Wilson Contreras the name there?
I think Wilson Contreras is worth more than those two guys. So you'd have to send someone else. I'm not even asking for a core player. I'd be asking for like, an up and coming guy, perhaps. I know you're a big Gavin Sheets guy, but maybe send him.
And that's the other thing. I don't think that he is worth more than them. I just don't think that matches up well as much because Zach Collins and NWI Steve and I had this conversation the other day, and he talked me in and convinced me that Zach Collins is going to leave the White Sox. He's going to go to Oakland, and he's going to wind up. He's going to figure it out. He's going to wind up being so good that Billy Beane can't afford him, and he's going to wind up back on the White Sox when he's like 31 years old after like 3 40 home run years. And then he's going to come here, and his second stint's going to be great for like a year. And then he's just going to fade into the darkness on like a 5-year deal.
NWI Steve has a lot of years of, I guess you could call it insanity because he just knows how the White Sox work more than anyone that I feel like me and you both know just because
I'm just saying this was 110% his idea, and I had no influence on the conversation at all.
Okay. I mean, the way you're explaining it honestly sounds about right. Like, that's why I'm like, you guys shouldn't give up on Zach Collins yet.
That's why we have that. So it's like, yeah, but you got to realize, man, I'm already traumatized by Tyler Flowers. So
yeah, it's hard to find. It's hard to
Miguel
find.
Olivo, like these names haunt me. If it's not AJ Pierzynski, it's not good. That's like the White Sox. Like if you want to get like down to like the White Sox fan core, it's like, oh my God. And now like Yasmani Grandal is even just this hot topic where like he's either a Hall of Fame caliber catcher or he sucks.
Yeah.
That's how
bad. Like he doesn't hit, but he walks a lot and he'll hit homers, but he doesn't get enough hits.
He's got gap power. Like he can hit his
I
doubles.
know. When he was in Milwaukee, it was probably his best years.
Fantastic.
Right.
The problem with Yasmani Grandal for me is the defense.
Yeah. And that was something that I was wary of too. Whenever
I was told though that he was the best pitch framer. So you could be told that Yasmani Grandal was going to come in here and be the best pitch framer. He was going to really command the pitching staff. You watch James McCann kind of do that for a year, side by side to Yasmani Grandal. A lot of White Sox fans had thoughts that, Grandal's a way better player than McCann, which is totally, totally true. And then, if you really liked James McCann, like, let's crucify you online because you said you liked James McCann, and James McCann sucks, even though he doesn't, but he had a bad year for the Mets. So that justify you. You're a fucking idiot if you thought that James McCann was going to do anything for the White Sox. So that means that you must love Yasmani Grandal and everything that he does, and he gets on base, but he doesn't hit the ball, so he's just walking at an incredible rate. And then the guy has an injury, and he can't tag people out at home because the ball's flying right by him. And then if you get mad at that, it's bad. It's bad. You can't get mad at that. Because it also happens to James McCann. Like, the whole cycle. The whole cycle, how it works.
I lived through this exact cycle for 5 years on Cubs Twitter when it came to literally anyone.
Yasmani Grandal's a great baseball player. The funny thing is for White Sox fans, like he was like the highest paid signing of this whole entire rebuild. Like from a free agent standpoint, he was the guy they brought in. And yet, like, we're just complain. This isn't good. But then shoot yourself in the foot with points that we just went over years ago. And then now it's Zach Collins. Well, we can't go into this year with Zach Collins. There's some panic. Well, yeah, because there's nothing behind him. You got rid of everything else. Omar Narvaez gone in part of that. Now he's up in Milwaukee. You got rid of James McCann. You weren't developing anything.
Yep.
Sebi Zavala, he's coming up, but he's a great back. He's like a backup guy, like your AAA
definitely.
There's a place for those guys.
Right.
And Zach Collins and Sebi Zavala are like two AAA backup guys that just like need to figure something else out in their swing or defensively or whatever to like just take that step. There's a
I
middle tier in between that.
I think the White Sox are going to definitely roll into next year with Zach Collins. Again, I don't know if that's going to rile White Sox Twitter up with me saying that, but like, I just don't feel like one full season with him is going to make the front office think one way or another, or like give up on
Oh, I
him.
think they
With the way,
love
at
him.
least with the way that they manage money, right? Now, if the opportunity comes for them to go get a proven catcher, then I would see it. But I just don't know
I
why
mean,
they would do that when they already have Grandal.
they had Jonathan Lucroy last year in spring training,
Yeah,
and
well,
obviously moved on from him, and you know where he wound up, and you know,
yeah.
like that's interesting to me that Zach Collins got that nod kind of over a veteran
Yeah.
who winds up with starting time in the major leagues later that year when your goal is World Series. Yeah, I know you want to get there, but like the results kind of started to speak for themselves after a little while.
Right. And you watched him more than I did, right? So I don't even know his season numbers, but I don't know. I just don't see them giving up on him, a first round pick like that so quickly. Unless they were to make a trade for Wilson Contreras or, something like that. I don't know. But I do know the defensive issues are there with Grandal. That was like I was a friend. I'm friends with a Dodgers fan, so he talked to me all the time about how Grandal was terrible defensive, at least when it comes to just letting balls go past him. He's a great framer, right? But like he's got some other flaws defensively. Great hitter for the most part. I don't know, but I do think you're probably going to think like if you're a White Sox fan right now, you're just like hoping and praying Luis Robert stays healthy and he gives you the similar production that he did when he came back from injury. You're hoping Eloy gets back to being Eloy. And if those two guys do that, then whatever you get from Grandal and Zach Collins, you're probably just sitting, you're thinking a lot different. I feel like, because like you didn't have those guys for all season basically. So you had to rely on Grandal a lot more, right? And you had to rely on Zach Collins to, come up and be some sort of productive player. But if you're getting consistent contributions out of the guys, like the big guys like Moncada and Eloy and Robert, then you're just like whatever else you get offensively is just kind of like an added bonus. So that's the way that I kind of look at it. And that's why I don't think they're going to like move Zach Collins or anything. Cause I just like, if he wasn't their first round pick, I would think differently, but I think catchers take a little bit longer to develop.
I think when you're talking about the whole first round pick thing, like if you kind of look at where the Sox are with first round picks lately, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jake Berger, nothing wrong with Tim Anderson. Outside of Jake Berger had some injury issues and everything, he's still within the org. But I mean, again, here comes me mentioning something in NWI. Steve did again. He just wrote an article about Garrett Crochet. Like, where are we here? Like, starter, reliever. Why is the fastball down? We don't know. You can find that on Sportsnet. You look at Carson Fulmer. Not great. I think he just signed a minor league deal in the lockout. Like, that's... I want to be hearing about Carson Fulmer in my offseason news. Thanks, baseball. Like there's Zach Collins hasn't really made a huge impact. The draft just hasn't really served them super well outside of Andrew Vaughn this year. And like, there's still kind of question marks there too. Like, what is Andrew Vaughn? Is he a left fielder?
Maybe
I'm
just, because I feel like the league is moving so much more to like really like making sure they get the right player in the draft. Like the draft has been so much more emphasized in recent years. And I just feel like,
well, yeah, that's because the money that they were paying these kids. Like if we go and look at this, it's like, if you want to get talent, you gotta acquire it cheap. And that's the easiest way to acquire cheap talent was through the draft. So it was like your primary target to build your team. When you have a bunch of first round draft picks kind of sputter out for a couple of years, like that's not good for the
No,
franchise, for
no.
your record, for attendance, for anything. So
Yeah.
when you're drafting sucks, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, for sure.
And what you've seen the White Sox do is go to the international market to try and make up for that.
Mhm.
I think more than any other team.
I would agree. I would agree with that. They definitely, I mean, and they've created like a pipeline because they got what's Jonas Cespedes' brother or cousin or something. They signed
You
him.
got Yolbert Sanchez down there. You've got Yoenis Cespedes' brother, Yoliki or Yolakis.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it. There's like 6 different spellings that are out there. I know that our editorial team over at On Tap had quite the time when we signed him trying to figure out what the name was. But it is, I think, a half brother to Yoenis. You got Oscar Colas rumored to be signing here. That's going to be another option out there. There's a huge pipeline of,
Yeah.
like you said, just talent coming in from the international pool. That's where the White Sox they kind of righted their ship. I know
Yeah.
Yohan Moncada was via trade. Eloy was via trade. So the trade and international pool is where they've gotten pretty much everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
Jose Abreu even came in through that. Like, if
Right.
you look at the White Sox, Tim Anderson and Garrett Crochet and Andrew Vaughn are like draft products that kind of like really stick out.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'm just looking at it more as like how I view the Cubs, where they've been very successful in the draft and like over the last decade. And so it's like, I've watching the White Sox from afar.
Tell me more about how great it is to have young, controllable talent.
I could sit here all day and talk to you about that.
It comes straight up from the minor leagues and just rakes. Although Chris Bryant did strike out 199 times in his first season. That's like a Cubs record.
Yep. The 30% K rate his rookie season that came down a ton his second year on his way to the MVP. So yeah, man, I don't know. If there's anything that I feel like is more likely is like if they do keep Collins, but his struggles continue, then they'll definitely try and get like a backup catcher at the deadline. Like that's something the Cubs did in like 2017, I think, and went and got Avila from Detroit. Because again, I know Detroit's going to be better. They added Baez. They got a lot of young guys coming up. They're going to be an interesting team, but I don't think most people think they're going to be there with the White Sox. I think the White Sox they're gearing up for another division title next season. So I feel like they can get by with this Zach Collins issue. Maybe
that's something that I've kind of talked with some other White Sox fans about, is they want this solved. Now, I think you get a better deal at the deadline than you do right now.
Also, like, I don't want to say you don't know what you're going to get out of backup catchers or whatever, but like, I feel like you'll find the right one more likely at a deadline than you would right after the lockout. I don't know. Like Robinson Chirinos is like 42 years old.
That's the next thing that we don't even know what this is going to look like when we come out of whatever this lockout is.
We just hope and pray that it's not before,
right,
or April, you know what I mean, or after April, like that would be the worst thing, is if this like goes all the way until like
I would cry so hard for so many days every day that there's no baseball. I'd probably just be waking up feeling terrible.
Our summers would be so boring. There would be nothing to do, nothing to watch every night.
That's just part of everyday life, and if it doesn't last 4 hours, it's not long enough. That's all I've got, man. Like if we're gonna go back to the whole baseball length discussion, we'll probably rehash it for another 3 hours. But I don't have much more to talk about the White Sox, Cody, because they haven't done a whole lot, and this has been fun, man.
I
I've
yeah,
enjoyed this.
I agree. And I feel like we need to talk a little bit more about them when we come back after the holidays. So I look forward to that. Maybe we'll have some more rumors to talk about as well. Um, I
If not, maybe we'll try and get some guest action going on this show. I think
yeah,
we can get some guest action going on this show.
for sure. I agree. So, yeah, I got nothing else. I will say this, and I don't want to go on a spiel about it, but the Hall of Fame voting January 25th. I look forward to finding out whether MLB is going to fuck this up again or if they do the right thing. And what I mean by MLB, I guess I basically mean the Baseball Writers of
I
America
already know where
Association
you're
or
going
whatever.
with this.
They just need to let Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Sammy Sosa in this thing. Or at the very least, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. That's all I ask.
Well,
Just let these
is it
guys.
really not Sammy Sosa for you though? Like, let's be real. You would if there was an opportunity for Sammy to get in and not Barry or Roger, which is probably not going to happen.
Right.
There was a way for him to get in on his own. You would be there. But
I would
mean,
take it. Yeah.
I agree with you. I kind of do, except for Roger Clemens. I'm not a big Roger Clemens guy, but let the steroid guys in there. In fact, put Jose Canseco in the Hall of Fame for all I care. He changed the game and he made it a ton of money and he did a bunch of things that are now illegal, but were not illegal before. So you can't punish a guy for breaking rules that he didn't break.
Right. And the thing that scares me the most is if Kurt Schilling gets in before those and not those guys.
It's going to be so wild. And all of this, just every blanket baseball star from my childhood, I'm raising my hand right now, just put him into the Hall of Fame or just start a different Hall of Fame for like Hall of Fame post 1990 and beyond. Like,
that'd be so wild. Just like put another building next to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown.
Yes, put like somebody buy a property next to the Cooperstown building and like build like the baseball steroid Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and like put Jose Canseco's car wash in there. Put Mark McGwire in there. Put Sammy Sosa in there, and it's just you walk in. It's videos of home runs. Just.
And just pure like electricity. Yeah.
Home runs, electricity, and like call it the Hall of Home Runs.
Yeah. I just feel like
put all those guys in there.
It's just so disappointing to me that it's came to this. Like we're in year 10 with Barry Bonds on the ballot. And it's just I don't know, man. If the writers fuck this up again, like I'm going to lose credibility for all the voters. Like I'm just not going to like believe that the Hall of Fame is at the
I think Cody, I think that there were people 10, 15 years ago having this conversation about other players as well, and it's been this way for a long time.
Yeah.
What's crazy to me is that like all-star appearances are still like things that they consider. Certain writers consider when they're filling out these votes.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the all-star games are kind of like decided by a bunch of people on Twitter and paper ballots
in
an election vote. It's a fan vote.
Yep.
And yet like the all-star appearances like show up on stat cards that then affect Hall of Fame decisions.
Right.
The whole process is wild.
It is. There's a lot of like flaws in it. And it's just like I was saying, like if Kurt Schilling gets in, and whether you believe in what he's spewing on Twitter every day or not, there's a lot of people who think character-wise that he sucks. But then the people against the guys from the steroid era, like Bonds and Sosa and McGwire and anyone else, they use integrity and character as well. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So again, man, like I'm always going to believe that Sosa belongs in. And that's because he's like 85% of the reason I'm a Cubs fan. And he led to me becoming a fan of baseball and all that shit. Like I know I'm not the only one who's like that. And you could say the same thing about Barry Bonds and Giants fans, and Cardinals fans who was a fan of McGuire, that are like millennials that were like my age. Like, I feel like those guys all had a play in them becoming a fan of not only that team, but just in baseball. And to just completely leave them out and act like they didn't exist is bad. It's just like not good for the game. It just takes all credibility out on the voters and everything, in my opinion, if they don't do the right thing.
So where because I want this podcast to go another 3 hours. Where are you at on Alex Rodriguez?
I mean, listen, if I'm going to say that Bonds deserves to get in, blah, 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 and Clemens and all them, like, yeah, A-Rod deserves to get in. He had a great career. He admitted.
Not as a broadcaster, as a player.
Not as a broadcaster. Definitely not as a broadcaster. Definitely as a player. He ain't going to get in on the first ballot, even though the numbers say he should. But it is what it is. I just all ass backward, because like Jeff Bagwell and Pudge Rodriguez got in and they're linked to steroids.
Yeah, you're getting like we're at that weird period right now where like everybody who was good during that time is either like now outcast for whatever they believe about something that's a hot topic within social media, or they use steroids. Like it's just like there's no like this dude was just this pure guy who just played baseball and kept his nose out of everything.
Right.
And I think
and that's why the guys like King Griffey Jr. are so special, right? Like he deserved to get in unanimously and stuff.
Yeah, but this might be a long-winded topic, and maybe we'll go down this one again, because I don't want to go over an hour and a half. But is the social media age kind of like putting that in its place, where like these guys, their lives aren't really private anymore. Things that they do after their career now can affect whether or not they make it into the Hall of Fame. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same. And maybe it's something that we can discuss in further detail at a later time.
Well, whenever the Hall of Fame voting comes, which is January 25th, like, we'll probably have a show a little bit before it or definitely after it. And I look forward to talking about it, because I feel like the Baseball Hall of Fame is the most controversial of all Hall of Fame voting and everything. So it'll be interesting to see who gets in. I just don't want to see any more freaking ballots on Twitter where some guy submitted one and didn't mark anyone. Not one person. There was one that happened last year.
You got to be a special kind of person to do that.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, I'm not going to go any more rants. So anyway,
be sure you're following On Tap Sportsnet at On Tap Sportsnet on Twitter. Cody's going to get mad online here. You can find Cody at Cody On Tap. He's part of the Cubs On Tap podcast. You can find them at Cubbies On Tap. You can find me at Tony On Tap, White Sox Show at Sox On Tap. Cody, it is always fun talking baseball. This has been a refreshing hour and a half. I wish it can go 3-4 hours, just like an extra inning baseball game in the National League that winds up going into some crazy situation where you've got infielders pitching in the National League. That's the kind of night I want to have. You got anything else before we close this down, buddy?
No, man, I got nothing. Good to be back. Look forward to talking to you after the holidays. I hope everyone listening has a great holiday. Again, Tony said earlier, go subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify, and you can just go to Anchor as well and find us as well. So thanks to everyone for listening. Go Cubs. And I'm done.
There you go. White Sox forever from me. On Tap Sportsnet, ontapsportsnet.com. Follow us on Twitter at ontapsportsnet. Cody, you enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year. We'll be back in the new year with more Crosstown On Tap. Crack 'em, baby.
Crack 'em.